Good morning, everyone. It's a delight to be here. You might, I realised just reviewing my slides again, I didn't really explain much about Northumbrian Water, and I guess not all of you might know who we are and what we're about. So we're a regulated water provider. We serve 4.5 million customers in the northeast and the southeast of England. And we own and operate quite a lot of critical national infrastructure, about just around about 55,000 kilometres of network, roughly 2,000 treatment works and pumping stations. And in doing that, we collect around 20 million data points a day, and probably about another million or so events, pumps on and offs, reservoirs, high and low levels, and so on. So quite a lot to go at. Why we're here? Well, I couldn't help notice Sir John refer in some of his resilience challenges, at least 3 of the challenges he highlighted off the top of his head were water-related ones in terms of drought, flooding and leakage. So we've definitely got a role to play in the national infrastructure and resilience piece. I think in the programme it talks about our digital transformation and our need for technical facilities. I'm not going to cover all of our digital transformation. I'm going to focus on one key part of that key element, and certainly an element where the need for collaboration and for facilities like Daphne that we've already heard about this morning is paramount. So why are we inspired by digital twins? Well, we looked at what is going on in discrete manufacturing, companies like Siemens, who are using digital twins to design their manufacturing facilities and design the products that are manufactured in them, to the point where they can commission facilities, they can troubleshoot them and snag them, and they can train people on facilities before they've actually got a spade in the ground. And it's a remarkably efficient way of developing and building a facility. We think about ourselves as having factory environments, wastewater factories producing clean water to go back into the environment, or producing nutrients or energy out of that wastewater. So we really saw that analogy quite strongly. We're also inspired by what's going on in aerospace and the use of digital twins around, for example, engine maintenance. And that ability to understand exactly when you need to perform maintenance on an engine has spawned different business models. We're now looking at servitization, where the asset operator doesn't own the assets. They buy a service based on that asset. So can we do the same in water? We've got lots of capital-intensive assets. Can we look at it a different way, enabled through better understanding of data and the performance of those assets to enable a different business model? And Formula One, where we're seeing digital twins used extensively to drive performance, but also to enable innovation. So I was astounded to learn that in some cases they are so confident in their modelling and their testing that they can design and test components virtually, and the first time they hit the track is in a qualifying or race environment. They've got that much confidence in their model. So can we get to that same level of confidence to enable innovation in what we're doing in water, in an environment where we don't then have to go and potentially risk what essentially is a very important service that we don't want to disrupt. So Mark's already mentioned it. There's a lot of people talking about digital twins. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of reasons to be interested. And this slide from Gartner, which was last August's hype curve, puts digital twins right at the very top. But what's important is that we work with people like yourselves and with organisations like Daphne to convert that hype into results. We don't want to spend too long in that trough of disillusionment where we all realise that it was all puff and there wasn't much to it in the first place. So we've got to get through that quickly and work together to do that. So this was our vision of a digital twin. You might have seen something similar. But I realised that the old version wasn't quite right because it didn't have a person in there. And for us, it's vital that we put the person into this system. because it is about, as people have mentioned already this morning, enabling better decisions. So the vision here is that you have someone, they want to know something. It might be some form of very short-term operational support, it might be more tactical, or it might be quite long-term strategic planning sort of decisions. Either way, they have a decision to make, and they need some insight to support that. So the idea of the digital twin is that there's a combination of data and models out there that can be brought together to enrich that insight and that understanding of the system, and feed that enriched insight back to the person. Now, this can be maybe work as a standalone digital twin. So you might have one twin, very discrete, sort of related to for example, a small piece of our infrastructure, and that's enough. And that might be pulling from a couple of different sets of models, and they might be pulling from a couple of different data sets. But the real value in this starts to come when you start to mesh together more twins, exactly as Mark was describing. So you might have a system approach where you've got different twins coming together, either describing multiple of our assets or getting into, as Mark said, networks, and then beyond just our infrastructure. You might have these sort of replicated twins, so you can start to do different things with different twins and roll them forward and see what the outcomes are going to be. Exactly that sort of sensitive analysis that Sam and Nick were talking about this morning, as far as the data models were concerned. But this is remarkably difficult. These data sets are all different. They're all different sorts of data. They operate at different scales. You've got digital data and analog data. You're trying to mesh it all together. You've got geospatial scales going from centimetre up to many kilometres, and temporal data from sub-second, if we're talking about something like pressure transients, which are operating in sort of 100 hertz, through to years if we're talking about water resources cycles and planning cycles. So immense challenges in meshing all of this together and making it work together. And again, this is where a facility like Daphne can help develop the standards to make this work from, if you've got different data coming from different data owners, or to test those models and understand where those sensitivities are in a safe environment. So that development piece as well. And this is all about people, and people are going to have to get this and understand how it works. So we're going to need people who can ask the right questions and who have the right skills to understand this. And again, a facility like Daphne can provide opportunities and environment for training and exposing people to these tools and getting that sort of co-creation of the tools really moving. So why are we interested? Well, we have a number of outcomes and different ways of using the twins will play into different outcomes. So process optimization, I guess, is quite analogous to that factory piece. So we believe that by optimizing our processes, we can deliver better services. The processes will run optimally. We'll have fewer compliance issues. Asset management is probably analogous to the aerospace engine example. We can drive lower whole life costs for our assets. Again, we can increase their resilience, reduce their likelihood of failure. Innovation facilitation, I mentioned this in F1. We very much want to support the supply chain to innovate. We can't always let them into a live operational environment. So can we use digital twins to speed up that process and bring technology to bear more rapidly in that sort of safe sandpit sort of way. And service resilience, I think service is where it really starts to get interesting, because you do start to bring people into the equation. And you've got the complexity of not just our assets, but other things like environment and the context of the demands on that service, which change as well. So can we use digital twins to improve service resilience? And in there, we are looking at the obvious things like leakage, but also perhaps less obvious things like catchment management. Can we extend our understanding of infrastructure out to the catchment and start looking at soils and at practices, land management practices? And I think service experience for me is probably the most exciting area, because you really bring the customer into that. Can we understand what service we're delivering to our customers and how they're responding to that, and deliver a better service for them on the basis of the decisions that a digital twin could support? So this is another way of looking at the architecture. So again, I think we've accepted that a lot of it is going to be about us and the models and the information and the data we already have about our infrastructure and our service. We're also going to bring in models that other people and twins that other people have developed. So when we start to procure assets like pumps, we might procure a digital twin alongside that so that we can plug it in to the system. We'll look to specialist providers. So we've talked we're working with Newcastle University a lot on developing models and twins. So we'll be very open to that sort of specialist expert input. And we've got Daphne at the bottom. We really see that as a way of scaling beyond just our region or just our infrastructure into something that scale and those added connections bring additional value to. So we've already started investing. We have a digital strategy that supports and lays a lot of the groundwork for this. We've invested in new customer care and billing systems, new asset management systems, and we've got a cloud strategy that supports, I guess, the industrial application of this. So we're putting the tools in place to do this, and hopefully will complement what becomes available nationally. But it's not easy, and this paper from Gartner highlights some of the challenges around integration, around data standards, around data security and governance, all the things that you've already heard about. And getting this right is paramount, and something where we're very keen to work to people to understand the challenges and how we can overcome them. Just a very quick run through on where we're at the moment. So things we're doing. Process optimization, I mentioned, so we're looking at our gas-to-grid plant. This is upgrading biomethane, biogas into biomethane for direct injection into the grid. Some fairly straightforward linear equations are describing the balance between what we do with that gas. Do we burn it in CHP? Do we burn it in our boilers? Do we clean it and export it? Though that's a very dynamic situation because of it depends on the cost of energy, the value of the gas going into the network. Something we did a while ago with Newcastle. I'm going to try and run this. If it doesn't, I'll skip. So this is a flood map. Now this is a flood map based on a pipe burst. No one had ever done this before. The mapping software was developed for fluvial and pluvial flooding, not flooding that we cause through the failure of one of our assets. What we realized is that we can use this to roll forward an incident much quicker, so we can see in a few minutes where that floodwater is going to go in an hour or a couple of hours' time, and that helps us really respond better to that incident. We know where to send people, we know where the traffic disruption is going to be, we know how to revalve the network so that we respond better. So that was a huge eye-opener for us, that we could start to do that sort of thing. And the idea is to scale that up, so we've got a sort of a browser-based service that can deliver this service, and then incorporate that into a digital twin. I'll skip over that one, it was much the same. This is looking more from the people outwards, so this is looking at service demand, wastewater and water service demand, from the individual property. So can we use agent-based modelling to understand the demand on the service that people are going to make, how that's going to change according to their behaviour in the future, or to population demographics. And then from that we can plan the delivery of those services. And again, it's around service capacity and resilience, informing our insight. Now this is an area that is very dependent on other considerations, and looking at some of the posters outside, I'm starting to think, well, can we use the work that's already been done about house prices, around station demand, to enrich our insight in this area and bring that insight, because it's all about how people behave. Quickly, our roadmap, so things that we're doing. So Mark's mentioned the national piece, and we're very pleased to be involved in that and starting to be involved in the hub. and look forward to continuing that work. I've mentioned the biogas piece, so this is one we started a while ago, and we're coming through to the point where we're looking at automating that and starting to operationalise that. Incident support is really the flood map, so you've seen a bit of that, and this whole city service, again, we're at the point of having built the individual base models, and we'll start to build on those and connect those to the infrastructure and the services. And then the data piece, which I guess aligns with the national stuff, is we've invested in BIM, in our own intelligent asset management transformation. We're looking very much at Internet of Things and how can we enrich our understanding through IoT sensors. So we're exploring some of that, and then that will move through into how do we bring it all together in our own architecture and standards. So something else we're doing is our Innovation Festival. This will be the third Innovation Festival, and last year we did some work on digital twins with Newcastle University, which spawned those projects that I've mentioned. This year we're going to be looking at really multi-stakeholder decision support. So how do we bring stakeholders on board, understand what data they've got and can bring to the party, and understand the decisions they're trying to make, and see where that alignment comes and how we match everything up so we all get best value out of the digital twins that we build. So if you're interested, have a look at the website and feel free to register. And that's me. I believe we'll take questions now.